Hi, this is Joyce Crane. I'm the news director at WestfordCAT. I'm here today with State Representative James Arciero, and welcome, Jim. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Joyce.
The representative is here today to tell us a little bit about some new appointments that he has just garnered at the State House. And also, you have been selected by the Speaker to serve on a committee, a Trump committee. How are you calling it?
It really doesn't have an actual, well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. It's been a while, Joyce. It's great to be on again.
So happy to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly there's been a lot of excitement and action going on at the State House. It's budget season right now. And about 4.5 weeks ago, I was appointed to some new committees in the House of Representatives. One of them being the Export Development Committee. I was selected as the vice chairman of that committee. The first time also for myself since I was a staffer in the Senate Ways and Means Committee to be a member of the House Ways and Means Committee.
So that means now you're on the leadership team?
I am. I'm part of the leadership team now, which adds more responsibility, certainly a lot more work. Always more difficult, with a 1-year-old at home. My daughter Angelina turned 1 last week.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you, which was delightful and time-consuming, but it's been an exciting time.
As any parent knows.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it's new to me. So my wife and I, every day is a treasure, and every day is a little different. But Beacon Hill, certainly has been very busy. I was also reappointed to the Veterans Affairs Committee and the Consumer Affairs Committee.
So that's good for Westford, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, all the issues that we deal with in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts when it comes to the budget, every aspect of the cities and towns that I represent, all the cities and towns, and then 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts depend on the budget. So being a member of the Ways and Means Committee, we just finished up our public hearings. We crisscrossed the state in the House Ways and Means Committee. Our last one was in Amherst, UMass Amherst last week. And what it is certainly is we are charged with formulating the Commonwealth of Massachusetts' budget. So our state budget is about $41 billion. That's the first proposal that we have seen from Governor Baker. Now, Governor Baker came out with his budget in January, and that's the kind of the start of the process.
So it starts in January and it goes until July, I think.
It does. July 31st, we finish up our debate on our budget.
And you were just going around the state. Who were you speaking to? Who was your audience?
So we have a series of public hearings on the budget. So I'll just take you kind of through, without the folks at home's eyes glazing over, how the process works. The governor comes out with his version of the budget, something called House 1. And this is the administration's version of how the state budget would work or look like. Now, for everyone at home and for yourself and your viewership, we as legislators, all 200 of us, there's 160 members of the House and 40 members of the Senate, we have a constitutional obligation as legislators to have a balanced budget every fiscal year. Unlike federal government that can run deficits, in the state of Massachusetts, we have to have a balanced budget. So when revenues and expenses aren't matching up, we either have to look towards other revenues or make cuts. So the beginning of the process starts with the governor's version of the budget. Then the committee was appointed in February, and right around in early part of March, we started having public hearings across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts with state agencies, with the Executive Department of, for instance, Homeland Security, with Environmental Affairs, with all the agencies in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, really just to look at their budget and for them to have a public hearing on, the budget items that they're asking for, either an increase, a level funding, et cetera, that you would have. So we start in around March and crisscross the state, trying to hit all the areas of the state to have these public hearings.
So who did you meet with in Amherst?
In Amherst, it was primarily education. So it was Department of Education, as well as the University of Massachusetts. So Marty Meehan came to testify on UMass's budget, as well as the state and community colleges. So that process works its way up until, my goodness, we're in April already. I can't believe it.
Can't believe it.
But at the end of this month, we're going to be having a debate on our budget. April 12th, this Monday, coming up, we're going to be releasing our version of the budget. So a lot of the input that we took as legislators and as members of the House Ways and Means Committee goes into this budget that is going to be released.
So does that amount change? The governor's number is 41 million.
It could. We haven't actually had our executive session, which is going to be on Monday morning, to find out the exact number of the staff of Ways and Means, which is robust. It's about 27 to 30 people. Are crunching numbers over this weekend to make sure that when the budget comes out on Monday, early beforehand, before our executive session, we're briefed on what the number's actually going to be. But it's going to be in that ballpark, of the governor's ballpark.
So, and then, so we'll wait and see what happens there. Maybe you'll come back and tell us a little bit more.
Well, what happens now for the process, just to sort of bring some clarity to the process, is the Senate then, after we have our debate, we're finished at the end of April, about the 28th of April or so, our debate will be finished. And typically, this is really where the rubber meets the road as legislators. You have 160 legislators, and you have typically over 1,000 amendments for every important project or every important issue that legislators have in their respective districts. So you have a robust debate of about 4 days, of usually 10 o'clock till midnight. It's kind of a marathon of advocating for your district, advocating for statewide issues to add to the budget. And then our product comes out, or our finished budget comes out, and we vote on it by the 28th. Then, early part of May, the Senate comes out with their version. And then it's a very similar process to what we're doing.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you have any pet projects that you're going to be advocating for?
I do. For instance, here in Westford, I was able to, Senator Donahue and I, and Senator Donahue represents Westford with me at the State House, we were able to leverage $100,000 for the Westford school system's technology budget. But over the last 2 fiscal years, unfortunately, they were vetoed by Governor Baker, and and then we're 9C'd, and that's his power to actually cut after we override his recommendation. So it's been a long process for the money for the Westford School Department, and I intend to file that piece of that amendment again this coming year. Also, the town of Littleton monies for to improve their information system.
So if you succeeded in getting the funds for the technology department at the school, in the school system, what would change in Westford? What would change in the school department?
What would change would be the money that I was able to increase. So the particular amendment was for $100,000, and that would go directly to the Westford School Department to improve their technology department. So
it's not earmarked specifically for computers, or I mean, is it more for infrastructure or for anything that is necessary for the department?
It is a little broad, but it is necessarily it's necessarily broad, but there'll be pieces to it. They'll have infrastructure, computers, etc.
And is there a dollar amount? Oh, you said
$100,000.
$100,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so similarly in Littleton, last fiscal year, Senator Eldridge and I fought for monies for Castle in the Trees Playground.
I remember that.
We went through the same kind of process, Joyce, and it was this, we got the money in the House, we got the money in the Senate, we agreed upon it, and went to the governor's desk, and the governor had vetoed it, and we understand that. Yeah. I mean, we don't take it personally. He's the executive, the CEO of Massachusetts, and we have to come up with a balanced budget, and this is how the process works. We overrode, his veto, and we were successful with that money. But the last 2 budgets, money for Westford's school department, and it's addition to. It's not the same as the money that Westford gets through Chapter 70 and local aid. Right. It's separate. It's an addition to. Yeah. And it was part of the budget that we fought for. Working with Tom Clay and members of the school committee and Bill Olson, we were able to get the necessary information to fight for it. We were successful, but I intend to file that amendment again and get back on it and see if we can get it done.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for that.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about, I have my cheat sheet here.
Sure.
You're now the vice chair of the Export Development Committee. And tell us what that committee does, because that's a leadership position. So
It is. I mean, you know, it's the first time that the committee's ever been created. And so the Speaker and the Senate President looked at, you know, the Export Development Committee as something that can enhance, you know, the Massachusetts economy. Right now, exports, they come up to about almost $26 billion of trade in Massachusetts.
no kidding, that's a lot of money.
It certainly is. And when you think about how broad and how robust this all is, you have to think also that there's over 200,000 Massachusetts residents that work in international companies, that live in Massachusetts but work for international companies. But our top, you know, export countries that we would deal with would be, of course, Canada, Mexico, Switzerland, Germany, and Israel. And so we have now just formed this committee, and we had our first meeting last week, and we're on the incubator stage of creating this. And it's important. It certainly is. It's a big part of our economy. You think about there's over 112,000 jobs that are associated with Massachusetts exports. And one statistic I thought was really interesting that I had just read, and I didn't know this, of course, because I'm, you know, dealing on the state level, and this has more of an international sort of connection to it, is the fact that, you know, you think about how our economy works and you think about exports from Massachusetts, you think about larger businesses, but 90% of Massachusetts exports are small businesses.
Is that right?
So
What are they exporting?
our top exports are innovation in terms of software, computers. Secondly would be machinery, chemicals. You look around Westford, and Westford is one of the fastest growing high-tech districts anywhere in Middlesex County, if not the Commonwealth.
What makes us one of the fastest growing
We, well,
areas?
Associated Industries of Massachusetts, as well as a number of the chambers of commerce have kind of labeled us 128 Part 2, I guess. And that's the fact that we're housing Juniper, NetScout, Red Hat.
IBM.
IBM's largest software lab in North America is in Littleton.
Yep.
So Westford and the district really have this sort of economic ecosystem that not only improves and attracts people to our district to live and to start a family, but also to lend their talents to, you know, the top-notch and Fortune 500 companies we have here. So we're being looked upon as a desirable place to not only live, but to work. And a big part of that, and I don't want to digress too much, but a big part of that is the infrastructure that went along with that. So over the last 8 years, an important part of attracting businesses to our area, especially high-tech businesses with large, you know, employees, a large amount of employees, you have to have necessary infrastructure and transportation.
Right.
So for young people, we have, you know, some of the obviously some of the world-renowned and top-notch universities anywhere in the world, not just the country, the world. Home of, you know, BC, BU, IBM, MIT.
Harvard.
Harvard, of course, just to name a few.
Just to name a few.
And in Boston and Massachusetts alone, there's over 116 state and community colleges and universities. And so the young people who are on the cutting edge of all this, you know, innovation and really are working, coming out of MIT and these other, you know, other great top-notch universities, how do you get them out to the suburbs? A lot of millennials don't drive cars when they just first graduate. They you know, if they live in the city or they're graduating from Harvard or MIT, they use the subway or, you know, the T quite a bit. And what we did was we improved the train, the Littleton train line, the Fitchburg line,
Yes,
to
you-
create something called double tracking, which would allow more frequency of the train, which would allow a reverse commute, something that didn't exist
Only
3
a couple
years
of
ago.
years ago, right.
And that was probably when I first got elected and I took office in 2009. I remember sitting down with the CEOs or the chief financial officer of IBM and Red Hat and Juniper and NetScout, and some of the most important takeaway talking points I got from those discussions were we need to improve transportation. Right now we're shuttling people from Alewife Station to bring them into this area to work in software.
Well, at least it's something, right? That's a wonderful shuttle that people can take the red line out to Alewife and then get on some shuttle.
Oh, certainly. Well, without a reverse commute,
it wouldn't happen.
it wasn't happening.
Right.
People weren't coming to Littleton.
Yeah.
So instead of, if I live in Davis Square and I'm a millennial or 20-something, and I just graduated from MIT, how do I know about Westford? How do I know about Red Hat? I'm not going to rent a car every day to drive out here. I don't know if I'm going to go to Alewife Station, but if I can do a reverse commute and take the commuter rail to Littleton, the shuttle's a lot big of a difference. So that is critically important to the success of our region. And you think about all of the high-tech businesses that we have in our area and how important sort of the unique aspect of exports is for Massachusetts. It's important for us to foster our export markets and improve our economy by making sure that especially our small businesses have the tools they need to compete.
So how often does this committee meet?
Well, we don't have a lot of pieces of legislation that have come to our committee yet. Like I'd stated earlier, we have just formed, and the rules are just being created, and we're going to start to do a series of public hearings across the state, especially with small businesses and businesses to find ways that we can work with them to improve their export marketing. And part of that also would be bringing the export committee here to Westford to meet with some of the great companies, small and large, that we have here.
And who's chairing this committee?
Lori Elrick is going to be, this is interesting. So Lori Elrick is the chair on the House side. I'm the vice chair. Our chair on the Senate side is our Senator Eileen Donahue. Uh-huh. So it's perfect for me because Eileen and I have been a great team here in Westford, and I look forward to working with her.
That's great. And now, so you're also serving on the Veterans Affairs Committee.
I am.
Tell us what that is all about.
It's been great. It's been a labor of love. As you know, I come from a military family. My brother and my brother-in-law both served. They both served 5 and 4 terms, 4 tours, in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I always had that. It really has a rock in my life and my family. And my late father served in the Vietnam era, and my uncle. So it's something that's really instilled a lot of values in my life. And being on the committee, as I said, has been a labor of love. Last year I was able to file and actually get passed a piece of legislation to allow access for disabled veterans for public housing.
I remember that.
And unfortunately, housing authorities weren't mandated by law for specific individuals with disability to get access to public housing. And because of that reason, it was really something that was technical on their threshold of how much money they would get. Incredible service for their disability money, and if that exceeded the threshold that you were able to get into or have access to public housing, you weren't allowed to get in. Mm-hmm. So we had, Terry Stater was our one of the best VSOs really in the Commonwealth, is a catalyst for this bill. And that's what it's all about. It's all about folks on the local level that see day to day these issues or problems and are able to troubleshoot them, let my staff and myself know about them, and then we can get to work.
So is that bill still pending?
That bill passed last year, signed by the governor.
Okay, I remember that. I just wasn't sure.
And another issue that I worked on last year, which I refiled, which is still pending, was waiving fees for higher education for veterans on the GI Bill. So the GI Bill only essentially takes care of a portion of the cost to go to school for veterans. There's loopholes in the law where veterans that served their country and went to university or college, they're paying an enormous amount of money on fees. So what my legislation would do would waive the fees for veterans that are going to college to make sure that there are no sort of loopholes in the law or any way that they could slip through the cracks and have to pay an amount.
I remember when my son Christopher was at UMass Amherst, the tuition was much less than the fees,
Mm-hmm.
than the fees were. And that was, he started in 2009 and graduated in, I hope I get this right, 2013. So I don't know what it's like now.
Fees are almost 4 times the amount of tuition.
Yeah.
And what happened, what we had looked at was the fact that, okay, in the GI Bill and for National Guardsmen, it's supposed to be free to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not counting like books and things like that, although there's money for books that's part of the GI Bill as well. But what we were seeing is that there were veterans that were coming home that were on the GI Bill, that their term of service had, was finding loopholes where they were actually paying more money than they assumed they were going to pay when they went into the GI Bill. So there were loopholes in the law that really needed to allow a veteran that has served this country to be able to go to college and not be assessed fees that were unnecessary. So my bill is still pending. It's gonna take some more time, and it does cost some money. So to me, I think it's the right thing to do, and I'll continue to fight for the bill.
Well, thanks for fighting for that.
No problem. And another thing on one of my main piece of legislation in Veterans Affairs this year too is dealing with Gold Star families. Mm-hmm. Now, Gold Star families are mothers and spouses who have lost a loved one.
Loved one in the military.
In the armed forces. And probably about 15 years ago, there was a Gold Star Mothers bill that went through that allowed an annuity for families when, yearly, that were Gold Star families. And we had a constituent in one of my towns that was on Mass Health, or still on Mass Health. And unfortunately, this is another technicality in the law, that her annuity that she received put her income over the threshold to qualify for Mass Health. Now that is ridiculous.
That's an irony.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So she had to actually choose whether she was going to choose Mass Health or the annuity she had from her son who died in Afghanistan that she received to help her make ends meet and pay the bills. I mean, that is not what government's about. That is not the intention of this legislation, and it's a glitch in the law that needs to be fixed, and I'm working on that now. I filed this bill, and you're going to hear more about it, I think, very soon as we move forward in the legislative season.
Well, good for you. That sounds like a real important bill. I'm a military mom myself, and I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you.
So we have about 5 minutes left, and I think I was very interested in hearing a little bit about what you're calling
The Trump Commission?
the Trump Commission.
Well, I'm not calling it the Trump Commission,
Or
Joyce.
someone
Yeah,
else.
yeah. It's, certainly, and, I've had I have friends that are Republicans, I have friends that are Democrats, I have friends across the board, and certainly for Westford is a very independent-minded town. We call them as we see them. We support good ideas. I graduated from Westford Academy. I was raised here. It's a big part of my life. So people ask me all the time on both sides of the aisle, what's the Trump Commission? Well, essentially the Speaker put together a 9-member legislative working group to address changes, mostly financial, that would alter our budget here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So what does that mean? Well, for instance, I'll give you a little snapshot of the budget. The budget's $41.5 billion. And in that budget, almost 65% is obligatory spending, meaning that we have to pay, as the Commonwealth, when we create our budget, it has to go into these specific categories: health care, debt service or bonding, Chapter 70 education. They're all obligatory spending. Right. So healthcare is almost half of our budget. So last week, actually 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago now, the Trump administration put forward their version of the American Care Act. And that would have disproportionately hurt Massachusetts by $2 billion until 2020, and even more than that moving forward. This is a bipartisan effort to sort of oppose those changes here in Massachusetts because it would hurt our budget. Like I said before, almost 2/3 of our budget is obligatory spending. So you talk about what's left: local aid, education, social services. So you have to make up the $2 billion that you wouldn't receive from the federal government in the health care bill. Then we're going to have draconian cuts or find other ways to make ends meet. And so I look at this more of a nonpartisan commission, a working group to address Massachusetts. I'm here to stick up for Massachusetts, not to play a Republican or a Democrat game as much as sticking up for Massachusetts. Also, there are numerous cuts in block grants on his budget proposal that's separate from the health care bill.
What's a block grant?
For block grant, dealing with cities and towns throughout the country of public safety funding, fire, local aid. On top of that, the National Institute of Health, Massachusetts receives the second highest amount of grants from the National Institute of Health. It's almost $2 billion. It's almost $2 billion here in Massachusetts that we receive. What does that entail? That means that monies, grant monies from the federal government, are specific to our world-renowned hospitals and universities to work on new medicines and find ways to, have an impact on the healthcare industry and to help people essentially, and to find medicines. Mm-hmm. And cuts in these in these things could have a negative impact on our budget here. And we just want to get our arms around it, to analyze it, and to see what way we can combat that or find ways to fight against it.
So how often do you think that the commission will meet?
The commission just was formed recently, so right now there's staff doing research on some of the impacts that I just briefly talked about. Another one was the broadband. There was a piece of legislation, something called the Broadband Privacy Act, that was repealed by the Trump administration. So what does that mean? I mean, that should connect to, doesn't matter what party you're in, and that essentially would protect people when they use their browser, when they put their information on the internet. To repealing this would allow, Google, Yahoo, Comcast, Verizon, all these all these businesses to have access to your information, and in some instances sell them to companies that could then identify you and take all of your information and put you in a category and sell you products or find ways to look towards making money. And unfortunately for that, here in Massachusetts and anywhere, privacy is our most important when it comes to our seniors, comes to our young people. I mean, how much is the internet a big part of our lives now? And that's a scary thing. And
we'll have to.
We're looking at filing legislation as part of this commission to address it.
We'll have to turn back to innovation and find a way to secure our websites. We are out of time, but I wanted to thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. And I hope you'll come back and tell us a little bit more about the Trump Commission in a few weeks or a few months when you get going.
Thank you.
So for WestfordCAT, this is Joyce Crane. Have a great day.